Okay guys, so I'm going to do a little modification here to the knurler. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. This is what you get when you buy one of those sets, those two older sets from like phase 2. And normally back here there's two knurl wheels. The idea being you know, jam this up against the work and it knurls it. But it puts a huge stress on your lathe when you're doing that. So I don't like those. I got myself one of these scissor type knurlers. And in my opinion, these things are far superior to the other kind because they don't really transmit any force to the lathe, you know, anywhere near what the other one does. Basically, you know, you're squeezing the work between these two, you know, scissor jaws. So, anyways, I got no use to these things, so I took the knurl wheels out because they're different than the ones that came with my scissor knurler. So what I'd like to be able to do is swap these wheels out, you know, depending on what kind of a knurl I want to put on. So what I got is 18 TPI, 20 TPI, and 22 TPI. It's a pretty noticeable difference between like the 18 and the 22. So the only problem is that although on these holders the knurls are screwed in, basically what amounts to a shoulder bolt, and on this they chose to just drive in pins, which isn't too conducive to changing the wheels. So I thought about different ways to tackle this problem. You know, these pins are just, they fit in here, but they're just a little bit too short to get a nut on the other side, and you know, the hole where the pin was is too big to thread it. So basically the idea that I've come up with is to make my own shoulder bolts. These are grade 8, they're 5/16 bolts, so, and the idea of all of these knurls is 1/4 of an inch. So I can turn this down. Then the question becomes, how do you hold it in the lathe? I checked my my ER collets, can't hold them in that. Checked my 5Cs, can't hold it in that. Checked my chucks, you know, nothing I have really will hold this thing. So I'm going to show you a trick I learned a while ago, and that is you thread a nut onto the bolt, and that will allow you to hold it in a 3 or 6 jaw chuck, so it can be center drilled. And then once you get a center drill in it, then you can set it up so you can turn it down. So I'm going to show that in the lathe here in a second, and hopefully we'll make some pins for this this knurler. Okay, hang on. Okay, so for purposes of this demonstration, I decided to make it even harder on myself. Hit the bolt. It's a cap head. So how do you hold that? Well, you need 3 nuts. Okay. 2 to jam together and 1 to hold the other end up inside of the chuck. Alright. So now you can see, got the 2 nuts on the end of it. got one up near the head. So we're going to chuck that up in the chuck nut. Okay, let's center drill it. Okay, center drilled. So now I can take all these nuts off of here, hold the head of it in my chuck, and use the center on the end of it, and then I can turn between them. So hang on, let me get that set up. Okay, so now you can see how easy this thing will be to turn, because I got it solidly clamped in my 6 jaw, and I got a center in the end so it won't fly out. These little Royal centers, they cost a ton of money, but when you gotta do small stuff like this, you can't beat them. So alright, let's turn this thing down. Okay, let's get a little measure. Well, that was a hell of a guess. I was shooting for 245, and before I even measured it, I'll get in there. It's 247. So that's that should fit the knurl. Let's just make sure. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Alright, so got to get a few more measuries here, and then we'll thread it and cut off what we don't need. Whoops. And then we'll pick this up. Alright, stand by. Okay, so what I did off camera was to just go in here and touch up this corner and make this shoulder flat. And once I got that done, I set up a dial on the way here. I have to go 750. That's what I want to leave for a shoulder. So I'm going to set this to 0, and then I'm going to count out 750 on this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 750. All right. Okay, gotta measure a screw here. This will make this 1032. Okay, through complex mathematical calculations done off camera, I have determined that we have 41 thousandths left to go on this thing. Close enough for government work. Alright. Now we gotta thread this thing. So let me do some cleanup here on the end near the center, and we'll thread it. Well, there it is. Get the knurls in. Get the pins done. Get the nuts on there. Everything's ready to rock. The way I threaded it was I single pointed a couple, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 passes on the lathe, and then I finished it off with this rethreading die. So that's how you modify a scissor knurler to take the other knurls. Oh yeah, and one other thing I thought about here, you know, this might make a pretty good holder for a tangential tool. I can see that happening. So I might have to explore making a little insert here to hold a piece of tool steel. Be an interesting project. Okay, that's it. So I was watching Chris B's channel the other day, and he was putting an oiler on his tool block so he could part off. And he had it mounted to the tool block in such a way that it dripped this way. But I kind of thought I probably would want to have my oil dripping on stuff other than my cutoff block. So I came up with a little, my own version here. And what I did was I took an old mag base I had laying around and I made a little adapter for the lock line fitting to screw onto, and then I drilled a hole in it right there. And I ran this really small Tygon tubing up right to the end. And then it goes up to a needle valve. And then it goes up to my cutting bottle of cutting fluid. And right now it's just kind of sitting up there because I'm showing it, but eventually I'll have to put a bracket up there for it. And that's my version of the lathe oiler. If I want to, I can put different fluids through it or whatever. So there you go. I wanted to show you this thing about Anchor Lube. A bunch of the metalworking guys on YouTube have it, and I decided to finally take the plunge and see what all the excitement was about. But what I want to tell you is that if you get on the Anchor Lube website and fill out a little form they have there with your name and address on it, they'll send you a nice little card that tells you what it's good for. They'll send you a free 2-ounce bottle of it. So in the next few videos, when I'm making something, we're going to see what all the hubbub's about. But it's anchorlube.com, and right on the home page there's a thing about getting a 2-ounce free sample. They send it right to my house. So if you're cutting metal, they say especially good for stainless steel, which I happen to have a ton of, then you might want to try it out.